This presentation brought to you in part by SkyCombatAce.com. Ditch the video game and do the real thing. Visit SkyCombatAce.com. Today we visit Gary Conrad of Henderson, Nevada, and his 1966 Volkswagen bus.
I was fortunate. I was actively hunting for a split window Volkswagen. I came across this 1966 bus. It was down in Santa Barbara, California, and the lady that had owned the bus had given me 24 hours from the time I made contact with her to drive down from Vancouver and acquire it. And my love is old things, all things old, including cars. And I am very fortunate to have a group of people that I work with and in restoring automobiles. Our team got to work fairly quickly after we acquired the vehicle in the restoration. Everything on the bus needed to be touched, and we had to make a decision in the early stages whether we kept it original or take it to a restoration that was somewhat modern. One of the criteria I use in restoration is if it can't go pure originality, then we make a decision at that time whether to take it to a level that would mimic an original restoration, or in this case, we made the decision to make it a modern, usable vehicle. This particular bus itself lent itself perfectly to that. So there's nothing that hasn't been touched here. It's a very, very safe vehicle to use in a modern environment, right from disc brakes, taking the camber out of the inherent Volkswagen bus stance, if you will, to the engine, brakes, and obviously the body and interior. One of the original problems we had when we completed the restoration, we had a very good exhaust system put on the car, but the stance was too low, making it really not a comfortable drive, if you will. Sounded great, looked fabulous, very expensive exhaust system, but we were unhappy with the stance. So we brought it into a local shop here, and we managed to have a complete custom-built exhaust, eliminating the problem. Fairly expensive, but absolutely the right solution, and gives it a wonderful sound. You know it's a Volkswagen, but you also know it's got some horsepower in it when you hear it go by. We hunted hard and long to find an engine builder that could give us a higher horsepower, very modern, stable platform to drive this vehicle with. So we've got ourselves a higher horsepower bus, deep sumped oil, twin Weber engine that will give us safe highway speeds, an all day long 85 down the freeway, nice and stable, very economical to drive. The suspension was completely reworked. One of the drivers I wanted to make sure that we attended to was the fact that the VW buses, when you saw the originals, they cambered in rather badly at the back. So we wanted to remove the camber. In doing that, we knew that we had to have the stance brought down. But I wanted a level ride height, which brought itself to a myriad of problems. So we did a drop front end, dropped the spindles, new shock absorbers, narrowed the beam, brought out the camber, lowered it, corrected all the bad habits of an old Volkswagen, making it a real treat to drive. Wheels and tires are readily sourced. They're a stock item, but we wanted something that would fit the mark really, really well. Because we've lowered the vehicle, I wanted to stand it a little wider. I wanted more rubber on the road, not only for good handling, but for good cushioning, because we've taken out some of that bounce. That in itself created a lot of other issues with brakes and fitting brakes and getting things set in there properly. It was all worth the effort, because now when you drive this vehicle, you really feel the fact that you're glued to the road, as well as a Volkswagen being glued to the road. Interior was done by one of our team members who is a very, very good upholsterer. And we said to him we wanted a look that was reminiscent of the 60s, but we wanted to throw a twist in it. So we've got ventilated Volkswagen upholstery, but we quilted it as opposed to the straight pleat that would have been done in it. And I think it really adds to the vehicle. And we put a little color in it that gives it a mottled look, which again, Volkswagen, if they had found it back in the day, would have loved to use it, and I think it fits in our vehicle extremely well. We're blessed. We have a great body work and paint shop that works with our group. The paint itself and finding colors that were reminiscent of the mark back in the 60s was important. So I wanted a vintage color. You can find all kinds of regular Volkswagen paint, back vintage paint, but I wanted a modern coating. I wanted a coating that would really bear the test of time, especially out here in the desert. And Fiat, of all car companies, has the most wonderful palette of colors. And these are two 2014 Fiat 500 colors. This is my first Volkswagen bus, and we live out in the desert where it's a little bit windy. The first day I took it for a drive, it was blowing pretty good out here, and the car sat very well on the freeway. I've now had the privilege of driving it more and more, and I'm finding that it's bringing me back to my youth. It's reminding me why we own old cars and what the hobby is really about. The hobby is about going back to the automobile when going for an ice cream cone, going for chips and a hamburger with your family were the important things. This brings you right back to that day and time. It doesn't stop to amaze me that you can go anywhere in a vehicle like this, and in particular this particular vehicle, and park it. I was privileged to go to a recent car show here, and we brought it in, and I deliberately moved it away from every other car in the lot because I wanted just to see what kind of attention this would draw on its own, somewhere outside of another car. And I deliberately got out of the vehicle, parked it, and left it, then just watched. And it's amazing. The attention that these particular vehicles grab in any setting is simply amazing. At any given time, there was people, 10, 15 people around the vehicle looking at it, asking questions. And again, that's part of the hobby. That's why we do this. That's why you build things, not only for your own satisfaction, but to give people an opportunity to look back at their own time. And it's always a good feeling when people come up to you and say, you know, when I was 17, when I was 18, I had one just like that. So it's very, very satisfying.
We want to thank Gary Conrad, and we'll see you on down the road.